to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve, indubitably, Mallett.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, Steve.
Roger Wilco.
We're trying to think of ways to, instead of saying yeah and yes.
Instead of saying yeah or we're trying to think of new ways to let people know that we're really listening to them.
What is Roger? Who is Roger Wilco?
Wilco is short for will comply. So when you're on a military radio, you say Roger Wilco, means Roger, I heard you and I will comply.
Roger Noco.
Roger Noco. It should be a bumper sticker for you. Naturally.
Definitely.
Fair enough.
Of course. Brilliant.
I suppose so.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I stole it.
Yeah. Hey, who's our guest today?
Our guest today is Micah Scott. He is a former Dripping Springs high school student. He's one of the original, what I love to call redneck rodeo. He originated, him and a group of his buddies originated the Mama Lewis title that I have been given over the years. He has done very well in his adult life. He's built a career for himself in sports construction. He's also a private coach. And
he's had some personal challenges and he wants to share some of that with us.
Absolutely. Tell his story.
Yeah, and give people some things to think about if they're having some struggles.
And some insight into, if you knew Micah when, it's not the same person that you know now.
Well, I've never met him and I can't wait to meet him and visit with him for a while. So
Indubitably.
Indubitably, naturally. It's been hot enough for you?
No, Steve, I love this weather. With my
gosh.
hair, it is just delicious.
Oh, I don't even care about that. It's the heat. You go outside at 2:00, you feel like you're going to die within about 3 minutes.
It's very, very hot.
Well, a couple of weeks ago on June 21st, the tax money that we have, well, not necessarily us because this was in Austin, but the tax money that is collected was spent very well. The Austin city leaders got together and wanted to remind everybody not to be an idiot and use your common sense on these hot days. So they came up with some tips and some things that just to remind people.
I just cannot wait. I'm sitting on pins and needles waiting to see what the Austin
these are
bureaucrats.
all things, the mayor, Kirk Watson, gets up there and talks about, and these are all things you'd never think of. Drink water.
Oh, well, you know what? I fail at that every day because I don't drink.
You drink liquid. I was going to say fluid, but you drink liquid every day.
Brown water.
Yeah, brown water. Don't stay outside for long periods of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Don't sit in a hot car.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And they call the press conference for this, by the way. Sit in the shade.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Well, duh. I mean, those are all things that
every time you should have said that. I should have used one of our new words.
Fair enough. I suppose so.
Precisely.
But this is just common sense, right? I don't even know why they'd have to have a press conference for this.
You said common sense and government in the same genre.
That's true.
No.
The only thing that they said that I could take away from this press conference was watch out for your neighbors. So if your neighbors, maybe their air conditioning goes down, invite them to come, maybe stay in your guest room. Don't assume that everybody that is your neighbors is okay going through this. If you see your neighbor out trimming their trees or working in the yard at 2:00 in the afternoon when the heat index is 115, and if you see that your neighbor's maybe not doing well, you need to get them inside and get them some water.
Eureka.
Yeah. Have you ever had heat stroke or
yes.
just gotten overheated? It's miserable, isn't it?
I have. I actually, it was really bad. The boys were in league football with the Hill Country Cowboys, and we were at a tournament, and I got super, 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 super overheated, and I went home and I laid in the shower for an hour on the floor, and Todd ended up taking me to the ER.
Yeah.
But I can't handle it.
It's very dangerous.
But now I know I have lupus.
Yeah,
so
there's some early signs of, the lupus is probably playing havoc with that. But there's some early signs of heat stroke or heat exhaustion. either profusely sweating or you stop sweating. So if you're like out working in the yard and you've been sweating you know what off, and then all of a sudden you just get cold and clammy and you stop sweating, that's a sign you need to go in right away.
I don't know how I would know because I have so much Botox that I don't even sweat.
You don't sweat anymore. You'd have to look for places where you don't have that stuff injected in you.
Okay, well, good luck.
Yeah, right. Dizziness, weakness, which is people don't realize that's, if you start getting mowing the yard and you're not doing very well with that, that's a good sign. Clammy skin, and obviously nausea and vomiting. You get nauseous, you need to go in the house right away, drink some water, and maybe get in at least a cool shower. I wouldn't get in a cold shower. And then the other thing and I'm adding this wasn't from the press conference, is watch out for your pets. Because your pets are just as susceptible to heat exhaustion and heat stroke as humans are.
I saw something just today about the pets and how just you have shoes on and you're walking around on the hot concrete. And
concrete can be 140, 150 degrees.
Well, somebody had one of those temperature guns. And so they said, do you have cool deck or artificial turf? Right. So they put it on the cool deck and it was like 120. So the temperature outside was 100 degrees. The cool deck was 120. The artificial turf was 147.
Really?
And as they're walking towards where the concrete was, it got hotter and hotter. And then the concrete, I can't remember what the concrete was, but the concrete was less than the artificial turf, but the concrete radiated the heat radiated it.
Wow.
So
I guess that's because it's a darker color. It soaks up more of the heat.
Well, people here in Texas, we're not big artificial turf people, right?
No. Well, it's starting to be a trend.
Yes, but if you have pets, it's hot.
What about, we've talked about this a couple times, just you and I, not on the show. If you're at H-E-B and you see a car that's not running with a dog in there, or God forbid, a child,
you have a right to break that window, I think. I don't know if that's 100%
don't know that for
true.
sure, but hey, you know what? Even if you don't, I'm willing to take that chance, especially if it's a child.
I think you do.
If it's a pet, I might stand there for a few minutes and see what happens, because maybe, they just went to go throw
But if the pet is in
drop
distress,
something
I'm
off.
definitely breaking that window.
Without a doubt.
Definitely.
Yeah,
but that's horrific. That's a horrific thing. And people do it all the time.
Unfortunately, that's true. You should not even for 2 minutes should you leave your animal in a car.
Why does your pet want to go to H-E-B with you and sit in the car?
That's true.
Why?
That's true.
I don't understand.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Well, hey, one last thing about that press conference. They had some helpful recommendations on how to get through this heat wave crisis because of the electricity. Turn down your thermostat.
Move back to California.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah. When I read that, turn down your thermostat, my first thought was, no, not going to do it. I like having a cool house when I go in. I don't want it to be 80 degrees.
What is your sleeping temperature?
71.
That is still, that's federal prison right there.
Oh,
federal prison. Mine is 67.
I don't even know if my AC would get down to 67.
67.
But during the day, we let it get up to 76 when we're not home. But I don't want it any warmer than that. They were saying turn it up to 80 degrees. I'm like, no, not going to do that.
No, federal prison again.
Yeah,
I'm just going to say thank you, shout out to Barton Creek AC, because they have kept my little AC. Oh, I need to knock on stuff.
Yeah, you do.
And Johnny has just kept that thing running. So
no doubt about it.
God bless you. So I wanted to piggyback on something that we talked about last time, was tipping.
Yeah.
So there is a restaurant, and I'm sure there's other restaurants. I'm just telling you, you need to watch your receipts. Don't blindly just pay your restaurant bill. There's a Westlake restaurant that is charging 4% of the bill for something they're calling the employee support fund.
And they're not asking for it.
They're not asking.
It's mandatory.
It's mandatory. And so there's two different schools of thought. This is either the back of house tipping, which is like the cooks, the runners, the expo, blah, blah, blah. But those people are usually tipped. I waited tables for a long time. I'm a big tipper. I'm a big tipper if you have gone above and beyond. But for the most part, I'm a 20% tipper. But I will tip up to 25%. Or if I've had many cocktails, then you get 50% of my bill. But
which Todd pays.
It has happened. But those are usually tipped by your wait staff. You give a percentage of your tip to your bartender, to your busboys or whatever. But then the other school of thought was when a customer questioned this Westlake, it's a Thai restaurant. They questioned this restaurant what this was, and they said, "Oh, well, this is our employee health insurance." The employer
What?
should be
Yeah.
paying for that. Should be possible part of
I
it.
could see if they rolled it out as an option, like, hey, it's gotten very expensive. We want to offer our food as cheaply as possible, as inexpensively as possible. And health insurance has tripled or doubled or whatever. And we, if you'd like to donate 4% of your meal to keeping our employees, happy and healthy, then you can do that.
They're
But
counting
it
on you
shouldn't
not
be-
to see it,
Yeah,
not
well,
to
I
notice
know.
it.
Yeah, I know.
And that is wrong. I even think, okay, we went to this restaurant, Slaughter. I can't think of the name. It wasn't very good. It's on the corner of Slaughter and Mopac. So we had a large group, 15 people. They added the gratuity, which is fine. I totally agree. We used to always
What
add.
percentage? Do you remember?
It was 20%. But this was the spiel that he gave me when I said, I saw it, service charge or whatever. And I said, "Oh, was the tip already added?" And he says, "Well, yes, but if you feel like my service was good enough, you could leave me more." And I thought, well, that's kind of a little.
So now we've gotten to the point where 20% is the base.
Yeah.
So you got to give at least 20
Or 30.
And they're, yeah.
The lowest on there was
it's-
8%
well,
that you could leave
the
extra.
other part of this that drives me nuts is, I love Simply Pho.
Yes.
Over there in
Yeah.
Bel Terra Shopping Center. And
Pho.
Pho, whatever. Simply Pho.
Pho.
And we go there quite a bit. I probably go once every week or 10 days. And it used to we would go in there and we could both eat for $30. It's $50 to $55 now. So now that tip at 20% is, it's another 40% on top of what it was before.
Yeah.
So yeah, I get it. Everything's gone up, but at some point people are just going to stop eating out. If you've got to tip 50%, and we talked about takeout last week. That drives me nuts. I like to tip for good service, but I don't want people to lean on me for it.
I know. Well, I felt it was a little kind of like extortion a little bit, I don't know. I thought it was crap.
Yeah.
So anyways, also I wanted to let you know that I have a drinking game. Every time in the podcast you tell me whatever or shut up, I'm taking a
Naturally.
shot. Yeah. Naturally.
Shut up.
Brilliant.
You're going to be wasted by the end of our monologue. Oh. Hey, I was driving down the road. What was it? Creek Road. It was Creek Road a couple weeks ago. And there was a guy pulled over on the side of the road. And I didn't know. Actually, I was riding my bike. And I didn't know what was going on. And he was standing in front of his car. And so I kind of gave him a wide berth. And he was standing behind.
I had a wide
turtle.
berth too.
Yeah, I bet you did. I suppose so.
I just had to. It's like you open the door and I had to walk through. Okay.
Well, as I came around the car, I could see there was a turtle coming across the road.
Oh, it's turtle season. It's
turtle
migration.
season.
I
It's turtle
heard that.
migration season. Yeah, and so the turtles are either out looking for new territories or they're looking for a mate. But
Turtle.
Yeah, but they can, if there's a creek on both sides of the road, they can cross the road. So you got to be careful. And there's 28 different species of turtles that migrate that you could find crossing the road. And so this article I read.
Why did the turtle cross the road?
Why did the turtle cross the road, Michelle?
To get to the other side,
Fantastic.
Steve.
Yeah. But so this article talked about, and some of this seems like common sense, but actually when I read it, I thought it was interesting. The first one was be safe yourself, which, it goes without saying, but you could see somebody that pulls over to the side of the road and the turtle's, 3 or 4 feet out into traffic. And then all of a sudden they're just oblivious to the speeding cars. Take care of yourself first. And then don't get bitten by the turtle. Apparently,
Turtle bites are dangerous.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're bacteria infested too. But snapping turtles have very long necks. So if you grab a snapping turtle by the side of the shell, like you would naturally do, it can probably bite you. And a snapping turtle can take your fingers
Can
off.
I just tell you, I'm not naturally picking up any
Yeah.
turtle. Honestly, do you know why the turtle crossed the road? He needed to get to the Shell station.
Oh, God. Jeez. Ba-dum-bum-bum. No doubt about it, Michelle. That was terrible.
And I'm on a roll.
Yes,
I'm
you
on a roll.
are. Yeah. if you see one and the traffic's not, you're not going to get run over in traffic, just move the turtle off to the other side of the road in the direction that it was going. Don't try and put it back because it's just going to go back across the road. Don't lift up a turtle by the tail. You can actually injure it. Yeah, never lifted a turtle by and don't take it home.
Don't feed it pizza.
Yeah, don't feed it pizza. Don't take it home. Don't put it in the backyard. Just leave them if you have to. Just leave them alone and make sure they don't get run over.
Logan had a little turtle he got from the High Point pond.
Did it live?
I don't know. His name was Sheldon, and we released it back into the pond because I guess it didn't like Caesar salad or something. Logan was trying to get.
Well, at least the turtle had a happy home for a little while.
I'm going to applaud you because as many times as I just interrupted you on that story, you just stayed the course. You were like,
I made it happen.
You weren't like the submarine. You just kept going.
Oh, that
too
terrible
soon?
submarine.
Too
That's
soon?
Too soon.
So let's get a little serious here for a second, and let's talk about kind of some facts of the substance abuse pandemic that this great
we don't
country
hear much about.
No, and it's kind of it's all over. It's affecting everyone. Every family is being affected, from small children all the way up. So, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health, I almost said use and health, approximately 19.3 million adults 18 or older have a substance abuse disorder.
That's just an insane amount of people in this country.
But only 4.7 million of those receive treatment, which is about 21%, give or take. That's staggering to me. We have a plethora of treatment centers all across the United States. The thing I learned from Anthony was almost every single thing that people are buying on the streets, no matter what, has fentanyl in it. Almost every
all
single
the
thing.
Illicit drugs, all the drugs that are being sold out there, not at a Walgreens or CVS, they all have fentanyl in them.
Well, over 70,000 drug overdoses occur each year.
Yeah.
70.
That's actually lower than I would expect.
That was from a
ton.
That was from a 2021 survey, but imagine that was during the pandemic.
I bet it's much higher now.
I definitely. And look, I'm a child graduate of Al-Anon, which Al-Anon is a group that's kind of partners with AA. My stepfather was a recovering alcoholic. I grew up in a very unpredictable childhood with him, and I learned a lot. As much as I joke about taking shots and drinking and stuff like that, I'm responsible. I feel like I'm a responsible drinker unless I'm tipping. But you know what I'm saying? It's like this topic is more on the forefront of people's minds than ever. And we're not the nightcap generation anymore. It has your parents' generation, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. Like every night your grandparents probably have a martini or something like that. Now it's every night. Friends of mine are having bottles of wine every single night.
I know quite a few people that do that. And they don't drink to just relax a little bit. They drink to excess. And in many cases, they drink to the point where somebody has to take them to bed or, carry them to bed. They are drunk.
They're drinking to cope.
Passed out.
Yeah, they're drinking to cope.
Which, I mean, life is hard. It is. It's for everybody. We have stages in our life where it's easier, but life is hard. I get it. But if you have that problem that bad, you need to know that you need help.
Yeah.
And you got to reach out to somebody and say, I have a problem. That's got to be the first step.
Well, and look, growing up, it's kind of, I got to unpack that a little bit, Steve, because growing up as a child of alcoholics, there was no reasoning. And back in those days, I remember my stepfather, they would say, well, I don't drink in the morning. So there was like this metric that they had to like, oh, okay, well, I don't drink in the morning. Therefore, I'm not an alcoholic, but you're shit-faced drunk by the time
my dad said something to me that when I was very young, and it stuck with me my whole life, that you have a drinking problem if your life is changed because of your drinking. meaning, you have a habit that, you get home at 5:00.
Yeah.
First thing you do is drink, or you go to bed early because you've passed out from drinking, or it affects your work. You have a drinking problem. It doesn't have to be somebody that sits in a bar and wastes their life away. It can be anything that you've modified your life for alcohol or some other substance.
That sounds like a country song for
does,
sure.
yeah.
I also
It absolutely does.
I read, and I'm going to applaud Governor Abbott here. House Bill 393 just passed. It goes into effect September 1st. And this law states that if you kill someone while driving intoxicated, and those people or person has a minor child, or is the guardian of a minor child, guess what? You're going to be paying child support. You're going to be paying child support, and
Wow.
it's not the child support standard like of non-custodial parents. It's not set of that. It's the standard of living that child is used to having, their educational needs, even their financial needs. And if you're imprisoned, and I'm sure that they'll take some out, but you're imprisoned within, I think, what did it state? No later than a year of you serving your sentence or getting out, you have to start paying that back. So I applaud Governor Abbott for that.
I applaud him too. The message there is, and it's a message that I've given my kids, don't make decisions in your life about drinking or substance abuse where a mistake with that can affect the entire outcome of your life. Meaning if you're in a situation where you have to drink and drive, call me.
Yeah.
Call me. I'll come pick you up. Or don't or sleep at somebody else's house. Don't do something, because if you kill somebody, your life will never be the same.
Well, and obviously the person's life that they've taken is done over. Yeah. So I back to the word or the statement unpacking. I think that when Micah is here, he's going to unpack a lot of it and give us a firsthand account of what occurred in his life and where he is now. And, as a community and as someone who has known him since he was a teenager, look, we all need support. We all need love. And if someone is hurting like that, try to be that beacon.
Right. That's right. Well, I think he's very courageous to come in here and tell us his
I think
story.
so too.
And he sounds like a great kid, and I can't wait to meet him. So let's take a little break and get Micah in here.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
All right, we're back with Micah Scott, who grew up here in Dripping Springs and went through the Dripping Springs School District and has had some challenges along the way, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But welcome to the show, Micah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mike, are you worried about the stories that I'm going to tell?
I am. I heard you talk to my mom yesterday, so, it's kind of nerve-wracking.
I'm not going to tell any stories you don't want me to tell at all. I'm not. Oh, was I your favorite teacher?
That's a lie.
Oh, yes, by far. By far.
Yeah, I want to know how you put up with Mama Lewis.
It was more of she putting up with me. I think I was the bigger trouble than she was.
I introduced you as the OG Redneck Rodeo.
Oh, yeah, from fold-out chair Friday to everything.
Paper airplanes to almost getting like banned from prom. I saved your ass a lot of times.
Yes, yes.
For sure.
So, Micah, you weren't born in Dripping Springs.
No, sir, I wasn't. I was born in San Angelo, and we moved. My parents got divorced at a fairly young age when I was about 1. And then my mom moved to Bastrop, which is where she met my stepdad. And then we didn't move out here till 2000, I want to say. My parents built their house in 2000. And so that was from the point that I remember everything was, I don't remember anything from San Angelo or anything. I just remember.
How old were you then?
I was about probably 2 or 3 when we moved out here, 3 or 4, around that time. And I went to Oak Hill Elementary School for, till 4th or 5th grade, and then that's when we kind of transitioned into the Dripping Springs School District.
Okay.
And
My
your mom was a teacher out here.
She was. Before that, she was a teacher at Clint's Mall. My mom and my stepdad were teachers at Clint's Mall. My biological dad he still is a teacher at Westlake High School.
Is he really?
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
He's the robotics coach out there right now. And so he's kind of built their program from the ground up. He started with physics, AP physics, and he was a basketball coach for a long time. So baseball and basketball were kind of my two go-to sports back then. I kind of leaned towards baseball a little bit more. But yeah, it was, teaching was ran in the family. My grandma taught English in the prisons back in the day.
Oh man.
They ran a boys ranch up in Wellington, Texas. And so it was kind of in my blood, which I think is kind of why I started off with my career of childcare. I worked in childcare for 11 years.
Where'd you do that?
So I actually did it right here at Your Growing Child for 5.5 years.
Really?
And then I worked for a little enrichment company that would go to the daycares and they would do, we would teach them basic fundamentals of sports and everything. And then COVID kind of hit and they kind of took a big hit from that. And then I moved on to Moxie Gymnastics and I ran their after school program out there for 2 years or so. And then I moved on to sports construction. So I took a complete 180 turn.
Yeah, you did. Tell us about that. I don't even know. I read that in your bio and I'm like, I don't even know what sports construction is.
It's basically a turf company. So we lay down turf. We also do all kinds of indoor sports facilities and residential backyards and big sports fields. Like we just got done with a big project in Houston at Texas Southern University. We redid their baseball football field. It's totally different than childcare. Definitely getting my butt whooped.
But it's the same. It's what you know,
right?
Because you were a baseball
exactly,
kid
and that was kind of my leaning into it. At first, I was kind of skeptical with it, but I just had a little baby about almost 4 months ago. She'll be 4 months next week.
Wow.
So I had to go through all the adult checklists, insurance and benefits and all of that stuff, and childcare, the hours were just, it was basically 3:30 to 6:30, and we bought a house out in Kyle about a year ago, and so me getting home around 8 o'clock every night wasn't going to be
conducive
exactly
to a young family.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So this job, it's a 7 to 3:30 job, so it's nice. I can work most of the morning and it without the heat, and then towards the end of the day, it gets pretty hot right now.
Yeah.
But
you have a big boy job.
I do.
How did that door get open for you?
So I've known the owner for a long time, and my wife actually mentioned a good point. When I took the job, she's always said that I've always talked about it. I've always followed them on Instagram, and I just thought their work was super cool, and it'd be super fun to kind of build stuff. And I like working hands-on and stuff. I always say, like, in high school, the only really class that I paid attention to was welding class, because we actually did stuff in
auto tech,
yeah. of course.
That's where I subbed.
As long
You
as
subbed in auto tech.
I was the sub for auto tech. You know why? Because nobody else would do it. You know why? Because of these guys.
That is true.
She has to figure out. She has to ask people how to put gas in her car. I don't know how she subbed in auto tech.
And so
funny.
it was just, and something was telling me to reach out to him one day. And so I just, I did. And he sent me an offer that I just couldn't pass up.
Amazing.
And my wife was like, you've always talked about this. And so it was just, I'm kind of at the stage now where I'm following my heart more and trying to listen to myself more instead of just trying to force things. And
do you have a long-term goal with that? Would you like to own a company like that yourself one day?
Potentially, I would like to own my own daycare facility almost, and that's really where my heart is kids.
Kids.
Yeah, I actually stopped by YGC before I came here, and I walked in, and I actually just texted my wife, and I was like, man, I miss summer camp. I miss the kids.
Yeah.
But it's like, as an adult, I got to do some stuff. I got to sacrifice some stuff. But this job has turned out to be a very good sacrifice for me. I'm learning all kinds of stuff. I'm doing different stuff. I felt like I was kind of at a stagnant point in life. And, I felt like I had reached the top in childcare, and there's really nowhere else for me to go. And so it was just, I was kind of feeling drained and, doing the same thing over and over again for 11 years straight, especially with childcare. Cause, with kids, you got to be on the same schedule every day. So But with this new job, it's something different every week, which is totally cool. I love kind of being surprised of, okay, what are we going to do today?
It's like our real estate business is like, you never know what you're going to get every day. So.
Well, now, speaking of never knowing what you're going to get, now you're a dad.
It's unbelievable.
Like, wow.
It honestly hasn't really completely sunk in yet.
It will.
It's unbelievable, man. It was such a beautiful thing. And every day I just, I find myself just staring at my little girl and just kind of sitting like, wow, like you're mine.
I did that. Yeah.
There's a lot of times in life where the house, the wife and the kid, those are my three main goals in life. And
have you had that moment? And if you haven't, you will, where not only is she yours, she's your responsibility. Have you had that moment yet?
I think I've had the more responsibility moment than I have of mine.
That's a big one, isn't it? As a man, you're like, oh my gosh.
It's a lot of pressure.
This person is going to depend on me.
Yes.
Maybe for the rest of their life, but certainly for the next 18, 20 years on me.
I was talking to her. I was kind of talking to her yesterday. I was like, man, I hope you're athletic like your daddy so that I don't have to pay for college.
Well, coming from you, she's probably very athletic. Are you still coaching baseball?
So I actually just kind of wrapped that career up. I'm in retirement.
Okay.
I coached for 10 years straight. And that was something that was a big part of my life as well. And that was kind of something that my wife, going into our relationship before we got married, I told her, baseball that's my passion. That's and now that I'm not playing the game, I've got to have a way to escape. And, I work out every day, but, just being on the field with those kids. And I think the biggest thing I see out of that is just seeing them progress. So I've been with the same group of boys since they were 9 years old, and now they're 12. And so seeing them grow from, not being able to hit water if they fell out of a boat to being able to do all kinds of stuff on the baseball field.
You're off the baseball field until your little girl decides she wants to be on the mound.
That's kind of a big decision in my life right now too, is, I've seen the amount of time that you have to put into baseball or softball, I guess, in her.
Well, you saw your sister. Your sister was amazing.
Yes, shout out to her. She's done unbelievable things, but we didn't have any doubts about her.
Yeah.
I always tell her I set the bar low for her. So, but, I'm trying to actually get her into going to play golf so that I have a reason to go play golf. So I don't know if that's selfish of me, but yeah, it's something that was tough to kind of walk away from, for sure. And I still haven't really made up my mind completely if I'm going to walk away from it completely. I am definitely taking this fall off just to kind of be at home in these precious moments with my little girl. She's about to start rolling over and she looks like she's starting to crawl. And so with baseball, it's, practices twice a week from 6:30 to 8:30. And then your tournaments on the weekend, you're gone all day on Saturday and potentially gone all day on Sunday.
Yeah. This is a good decision right now. Just to step away for a little bit. It's
right.
Everything in life is a season.
It's just so
the
long
season
for now.
right now is for you to do something else and focus more on your family.
And it's, and I do private lessons on the side with the kids too. So I'm kind of still incorporated in the game somewhat. That was kind of my biggest fear was, how am I going to handle stepping away from the game, and not only stepping away from the game, but also stepping completely away from kids, and that's kind of part of my sobriety journey that it's kind of something that keeps me dialed in on life. And, I got to do things that make me happy. And those two things are the two things that I feel like I've been put on this earth for is, baseball and kids. And the relationships that I've developed with some of the parents and not only the kids, but, the coaches that I coach with, some of my best friends are my assistant coaches that coach with me. And, and I'm excited to see what my little girl does when she grows up, and my wife and I kind of argued the other night. She was like, what if she doesn't want to play sports? And I was like, well, if she's in my house, she's going to play some sports,
There's some great lessons learned from sports, no matter what.
Let's talk about that journey a little bit about,
start at the beginning. I want to hear what was going on in your life that made you turn to alcohol the first time.
So there was, growing up, my childhood was perfect. I had divorced parents, which at that time was a little uncommon. And that was kind of the only major trauma that I had growing up was, my mommy and daddy didn't live in the same house. And, of course, at that age, I didn't really understand what was actually going on. And so growing up, I knew that I was kind of the outcast from everybody.
Well, growing up in a small town, right? Where everybody's
exactly.
close and
Yes, and
you're
so
like
everybody,
you're the outcast.
Yeah, and so everybody knew, and it was. But I've always been the happy-go-lucky kind of guy. I've always been the people pleaser. I want everybody around me to be happy, because if they're not happy, I'm not happy. And that was kind of a problem too. Was growing up, if somebody wasn't happy and I couldn't make them happy, I would hold on to that, and I would alcoholism. We take a small little problem and create it into a much, much bigger problem than what it is, just so that we can go and use our alcohol or drugs to kind of cope with that small problem that we've turned into a huge problem. So right when I was about 13 or 14 is when I kind of started realizing, all right, I'm a little different than everybody else. And that was kind of when all the trauma started kind of hit me. And the only way that I knew how to cope with that was by using drugs or alcohol. And so it started around 15 years old, with marijuana and everything. And
what I want to know is, how hard was it to get at that time? Like, we're not naming names, but no, I'm just going to say,
you'd be surprised. It's all about how you know somebody and who you know. But with the way I was, I wasn't going to be friends with you if you didn't have something to give to me. And so that was the main part was, I didn't care who you were. Right. The enablement. So if you could enable me by getting me this stuff, we were going to be best friends, and, I was going to latch on to you, and I was really going to be a part of you. But if you didn't have anything to offer like that, I didn't want anything to be with you. And it's weird too, because growing up, I had seen some friends that had gone down that road, and alcoholism and addiction run in my family too. And so I'd seen what it kind of has done to people. And I told myself I was the guy that was never going to touch any of that. I was never going to do anything. But then it just kind of made me a bigger outcast. I was different at first, and now I'm the one kid that doesn't want to do anything rebel-like.
But you were always Micah with a smile. Like, right. You always had a smile all the time. You were, like you said, you were friends with everybody. You were friends with the outcasts.
Yes.
That didn't have the friends. But you were also friends with the popular kids.
Yes.
And you didn't kind of fit into this like little bubble, this little clique.
Was your first encounter with alcohol, marijuana, drugs, whatever you were doing, was that from peer pressure?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I guess if it wasn't like somebody was
do it.
It was more of a social aspect. It was more of, okay, everybody around me is doing it, and I'm the only one that's not doing it right now. And just the carrying that weight for so long of feeling that difference and that feeling like the outcast. And then I start seeing people do this, and I start seeing, when they start doing this, they become popular and they get more friends. And that was my aspect. That was my motto. Was I need everybody to like me. I want to be the popular kid. Yeah. I want to have a big circle of friends, and that was my way of getting that. Was okay, I got to do this.
Well, that's why it was like kind of always hard to be mad at you, because you'd F up, right?
Right.
But you'd come in there and be like, "Hey, Mama Lewis," and you're like, how could you be mad at somebody like that?
And that's my, that's with alcoholism is the manipulation. Unfortunately, I know how to manipulate people very well, and I know how to get what I want out of you.
That's a real honest statement there, man. That's like,
it's tough, and for so long I kind of fought it, and I told myself, no, that's not me. That's not me. I want the best and interest of everybody. But then, when it came down to it, and they were in trouble and they needed help, I didn't want anything to do with them, because I didn't want to get sucked into their problems.
Well, you guys also, in y'all's kind of 4-year process of going through high school, y'all had some pretty big losses.
Huge.
And so I guess coping,
It was tough. And I didn't really know. I knew a couple of people that had passed away real well, but most
these were car accidents and suicides.
Yeah. And it was just, seeing that just kind of made me put that mask on again. For so long I wore a mask of the happy-go-lucky child and the person who's never upset, the person who's never mad. But deep down inside, I was secretly, just kind of slowly dying, and I didn't realize it either myself. If you'd asked me, what are your problems today? And I'd been like, nothing, I'm everything's good.
And looking at your mom, and I knew your mom, by the way, your mom,
rock star.
Of all my
Rock
three
star.
children, she's absolutely was the most underrated, best teacher.
Rock star.
Just absolutely the best. But I would see her sometimes and just the exasperation.
Right.
Because like from mama to mama heart, right? We weren't good friends, but she knew me enough that knew I had a relationship with you.
Of course.
Right. And so to see it through her eyes, it was heartbreaking.
It was difficult.
Right?
And that was another thing was, I didn't understand what I was actually doing to my mother, my father and my sister, or my family. At one point when I was 15, my biological dad and I, we kind of got into, a fight, and I moved out. And there was a time
At 15,
there was a time where I didn't talk to my biological father for 3 to 4 years. No emails, no texts, no contact at all. Wow. And it was partly his fault, partly my fault. There was a joint effort there. But at that time, if you would have asked me, it was all him. It was your fault, and that was another mask that I had put on. That was kind of the root of my alcoholism. Was I thought I was perfect. I thought I was God. I thought I run everything.
No responsibility.
None.
Yeah.
And, you could have asked me, like, I could have lied to your face. And I remember my parents had caught me in a straight up lie one time. I needed drugs and alcohol at one point, and my sister had $130 in her drawer, and I went and took it. And she was 10 years old. And the next day my parents found out, and they asked me straight to my face, who did you take it, when I was the only one in that house at that time. So everybody knew that it was me, but I straight up told them, I said, no, it's not me. Why are you attacking me? And it was this huge debacle. And I thought I was right. Like
you justified with yourself.
My mind had told me, like, no, it was okay for you to take that money. You deserve this money, you deserve that. And I took that money and I went and spent it on, drugs and alcohol right then and there after lying to them straight to their face. And so it was just like, and at the time I was so delirious and so naive to what I was actually doing. When I first tried to get sober one time in 2017.
So is that the first time that you realized you had a problem, was 2017?
Yes.
Tell me what that looked like. Like, did you wake up one day and go, you know what, this is it, I can't do this anymore?
Or was it mom
what was
going,
that experience
that's
like?
it?
So I woke up one day, and I'll never forget this. I woke up one day and my body had hurt, and it was not a normal hurt. It wasn't a soreness. It hurt. And I remember driving to the gas station over off of Hamilton Pool and Ranch Road 12. And I walked into the gas station to buy a $2.50 Gatorade. It was lemon lime yellow Gatorade. And I didn't have enough money for it. And I had a full-time job. I was living with my ex-girlfriend at the time. And because I had spent all my money the night before on drugs and alcohol. And I remember calling my mother, and she picked up on the first ring, and I said, Mom, I need help. And the first question she asked was, are you doing drugs again? And at that time, I didn't know that my mom knew that I was doing drugs. I had no idea because I had been out of the house. And so when she asked me that, it was something had taken over, and I immediately replied, yes. There was no lying about it. There was no, juggling around the fact that she knew. It was kind of like, okay, yeah, this is the moment. I got to do something about this.
And you were originally calling, Mom, I need help with my Gatorade, and God intervened and
exactly.
said, yeah.
And that was kind of the aha moment of, okay, if she understands through a phone call and she knows through a phone call, then, no telling who else knows. And so she was like, okay, meet me at the house. And my cousin, who just actually recently celebrated 13 years of sobriety, he was kind of running rehabs in the local areas. He's famous in the sobriety world. She called him, and I met her at the house, and I remember just sitting on my bed, and I was too tired to cry, but I wanted to so bad. I didn't know why. There were so many mixed emotions at that time. I was scared. I was kind of feeling guilty. It was just so many. I'll never forget it. That was one of the only moments in my life that I felt completely numb. And for so long with alcoholism and addiction, that was the feeling that I was trying to feel, was the numbness. I was trying to cope with my problems so that my problems wouldn't be there. And by feeling numb, that was the escape, And so as long as I was high or drunk, like there was no feeling there, my problems weren't there. But after I sobered up, it was boom, they were 2 times as heavy. And so that's when I would, go and escalate the situation. But I remember laying on my bed and she just walked in and she was bawling. She said, "Get up, we're going." And I had no idea where we were going. And on the way, she said, "We're going to rehab." And I didn't fight it. I knew that this was what I needed at the time. And I knew that there was no turning back from now. And so I went to a rehab in Rosanke, Texas. It's called the Last Resort, Bastrop area. Literally the only thing that's in Rosanke is a train track and the Last Resort. It's a 90-day male facility. You stay there for 90 days. You're on a strict schedule. It was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful place. And I remember when I first got there, I thought I was only going to, and at the time I was on probation as well. So I had just gotten arrested for an MIP in possession of marijuana. And that was another moment of my life that was kind of the beginning of it. Cause I remember, being in the cop car with my hands cuffed and my mom looking at the window, just crying on the window. And all she was saying was, "It's going to be okay." And that right there tells me how strong of a woman she is, to see her, her 20-year-old son being rolled off in a
Micah,
cop car.
you owe so much to your mother.
So
man.
much. There's
so much.
There's nothing I could do to ever repay her. We kinda,
you can. You stay sober.
Yeah, and that's
Hallelujah.
It's kind of the living amends that I'm making now to my mother. Just staying on track. And I just remember sitting there and watching her, and I still see the image today. And I was actually on the way to work for her as well. And I just remember her sitting there and saying, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And she was there the next morning to pick me up from jail, and drove me off. And the moment she dropped me off, at that time I was so naive that I didn't even realize what she had just done for me. And I just told her that I wanted to be alone. And I went out and bought the same thing that got me into jail.
Wow.
I went and bought marijuana. And that's what the disease of alcoholism does to you is it just attacks you, and it makes you so delirious to the ones around you. And it makes you think that everything that you do is the right decision.
Well, the biggest one you lie to is yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And you got to stop lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Did you get to a point where when you tried to stop, you had, were not detoxing, where you had withdrawals?
No, not necessarily. I didn't have any withdrawals, just because, it was...
Mental withdrawals, I bet.
Mental withdrawals were big.
Yeah.
I never had any physical withdrawals, fortunately, thank goodness. The first 2 weeks when you get to rehab is your detox. For me, it was just sleep. I just needed sleep because I would stay up. I didn't sleep much because I wanted more and more and more and more. So I wouldn't stop. And my problem with alcoholism was, it wasn't that I would wake up and I would need it immediately. I could go throughout the day without it, but it was whenever I had that first drink or that first, use of marijuana, I wasn't stopping until there was physically no more left, or I couldn't stand, or I just physically couldn't do it anymore. And that was the problem with me. And so that was another way of my mind tricking me, was telling me, well, you've gone through the whole work day. Like, you deserve this. You worked your butt off today. Like, you deserve this.
That
beer.
doesn't just affect young people. That affects people all the way up to my age.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that do that. Yeah, I put in a good productive day at work. I'm going to have a couple scotches.
I deserve this.
Exactly.
I deserve this.
Yeah.
Have you learned now to manage your triggers, like especially like in social situations?
I have. There's a few situations that I still kind of avoid, just because
you're so new in your journey.
And I know what's going to come if I put myself in that situation. But I think, the biggest reason, the biggest why for my sobriety is obviously my mother, but also my wife.
And your baby. Gosh.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And without my wife, I don't think I'd be as far down the road as I am right now. She's been a huge contributor to this. She's kind of the one that got me back into sobriety the second round time.
That's what in sickness and health means, folks.
Exactly.
Let
That
me
was
tell
what
you.
I was going to ask you, Micah. So you went to the Last Resort, and was that 2017?
2017.
And so that one didn't take, right?
That one didn't take because, I was there on court order. So they told me that if I go there and I complete my 90 days, that I would finish my probation. And so at the time I knew that I had a problem.
That was your only goal, is to get it. Yeah.
Right,
You didn't have a goal, a
exactly.
personal goal. Your goal was to get,
And at the time, I didn't fully believe that I was an alcoholic, especially when I got there and I heard all the other stories that all the other clients had there. And it was, I remember telling myself, well, I've never done that. So
I don't drink in the morning. We were
Right.
just talking about that,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
And so but that was just another way of my mind tricking me. There's so many forms of alcoholism and addiction out there that it's unbelievable. And so the first month I was there, I was like, man, this is some BS, man. Like
I could totally.
Oh my
Your
gosh.
facial expressions right now, that's
was-
Mr. Scott right there.
Isn't part of the recovery process that you have to realize you have a problem? And so the
Yes.
first time at the last resort, you didn't realize you had a problem.
No, not
So
at
it wasn't
all.
going to work.
No, not at all. And so actually the first step in recovery is believing that your life has become unmanageable and that you're powerless over alcohol.
And you're like, your
Yeah.
emotional maturity
And-
wasn't quite there.
right. And
yeah.
and they always say, the first step is to admit that you have a problem. And it's the truth. For so long I didn't think I had a problem.
You were like,
because-
I'm not the problem. You're the problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
For so long I told myself, like, I'm not the problem, like alcohol is a problem.
Yeah.
Like, but then I was best friends with alcohol.
Yeah.
Like, that was my go-to.
You are the company
person.
you keep, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, and when I got there, it was, I had a great counselor there, and like I said, they were like, you just got to finish this out and then we can get you off probation. And so once they told me that, that's where my tunnel vision went. It was like, okay, I just got to get through this. And so the first month was super slow for me. They gave me this big old packet with this binder, and they're like, we need you to do this and this and this and this. And it was mainly just breaking down all the steps. And there's a book, the Alcoholics Anonymous book. It's called The Big Book. And they would make you read chapters. So the first 164 pages are steps 1 through 12. And so
you actually read a book,
Yes.
which is unheard of.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've never wanted to read a book more in my life.
there you go.
And even to this day, I know that if I get in trouble, I can literally just open that book up anywhere, and whatever page I open up to, it's going to be exactly what I'm dealing with. And so, I was reading this book and I was like, man, I didn't come here to read a freaking book. Like, there's a reason why I didn't go to college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, and so, they gave me the packet and I was like, man, what is this? And I started at first I was kind of, lethargic with it. I was like, man, I'm going to see what I can get out of these guys. I'm going to see how I can test these guys. Even though they were former alcoholics who were sober and they had been through the same stuff that I had
And they knew
been.
your game.
They knew, yeah. And so
Yeah.
they knew what I was thinking, but in my mind, I was like, no, I'm better than y'all. Like you can't trick me into doing this. And I went through the whole scheme of like, oh, you're getting paid by the government and this is a scheme and you're not really sober. For so long, I really thought that there was like this basement that they would all go to at night and
Where they were all drinking and partying.
Yeah, exactly. For so long, but that was another reason of, why sobriety was kind of pulling me towards sobriety, because it was like, I saw how happy these guys were. And I didn't think it was possible to actually get sober for myself. So the first month I was kind of in denial. I was in the rebel mode.
This is the first time you went to treatment,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Mhm. And so, and I remember vividly one time I had run out of cigarettes, and there was I think it was day 26 or something like that. I was fairly new. And I had stolen a pack of cigarettes from a guy that was there, and they called me out on it. And I remember it was, I was like, why are you attacking me? Like, I didn't do this. These are my cigarettes, when it was obviously his. Like, he was the only one that had those cigarettes there. And I remember at rehab, you have the choice to walk. So you can literally just walk out and they won't stop you. But if
then you'd have gone back to jail, right?
Right. If I walked, it was a violation of my probation. And so when this happened, I just kind of got into the screw it mode of like, screw this and screw that. And so I just started walking. It was 32 degrees outside. I was in a tank top shirt. I was in pajamas that barely even fit me. I was in Rosanke, Texas. I had no idea where I was, but I was going to find something, and I had a guy tell me one time that
Because you're Micah Scott.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm going to do this, and this is what I'm going to do. And I had a guy one time tell me, us alcoholics have something that a lot of people don't, is if we want something, we're going to go get it. So if we want to go get high or we want to go get drunk, we're going to find a way to do it. So now we have to, sobriety is all about rewiring that brain, you know.
I was just going to say that, yeah, that's got to be part of the process though, right? Because somebody that's so good at manipulating, which is a bad thing,
Right.
but you know, in this world, if you can work with people, you know,
Yes.
that's a great thing. And
Right.
if you're committed to something, that's a good thing. So your commitment was to something that was killing you.
Yes.
You need to be committed to something
The
good.
my priorities were
Using
just
your powers for
redirecting it,
good,
yeah.
not
Yes,
evil.
exactly. And so I remember walking, and I remember one of the counselors there, he pulled up next to me and he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm going to go get high, dude." And he was like, "You don't even know where you are." I was like, "I don't care. I'm going to find something. I'm going to find something." And he opened the door and something just took a hold of me, and I got back in the car and he drove me back. And that was kind of we call it a spiritual awakening in rehab. I was like, okay, I got to do
this is still the first time.
This is still the first time. I wasn't even 30 days in. And actually to this day, he is my sponsor in sobriety.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow, that's cool.
He lives in Dripping Springs as well. And so I owe that man so much. He's literally saved my life twice now. Because if he wouldn't have came out and searched for me, if he wouldn't have cared about me that much, I'd have been locked up again. I'd have violated my parole, or my probation. I'd have been gone a long time, or I would have been on the run because I knew I couldn't go back.
Yeah.
You know?
How long did that, so you did get sober that time. How long did that last before you had a relapse?
So I was 90 days sober when I got out, because I was 90 days in. I went to a sober house in Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg or Kerrville. And I lasted 2 weeks.
Wow.
I lasted 2 weeks because I wasn't doing the work. I wasn't doing what they told me to do. You know, and I remember almost getting that when I was still in rehab and I was about 2 weeks out. They do this whole process of, okay, this is what you're going to, and they always say, like, you know, the real world's going to hit you. It's going to come at you fast because you're in this facility for so long with the same guys and the same schedule. And so it's almost like they're the running of the bulls. They just release you out into madness.
Well, you're
know?
still a smart ass kid though. You're
Of
Teflon.
course.
It's going to bounce off. Not me.
Yeah.
I don't need
and
to
that's
follow
exactly
yours.
what I was thinking. I was like, no, I got this. Like, you know, it can't be that bad. Like, it's real life. Like, I've lived real life the way I used to live. Like, I'm sober now. It should be easier, you know? And so I got out and I started looking for a job in Fredericksburg, and I just couldn't find anything. And I had built a career back here for so long that I was like, why am I staying here when I have my career back home? And it was definitely a fresh start, but in my mind, it was a bad fresh start. It was like, I'm starting from nothing when I have everything in Dripping Springs. And so then I went back to the people that were enabling me, you know? And
I think that's probably what the downfall of a lot of people when they try and get sober. They go
course.
right back to the same crowd. You got to change who you surrounded with, right?
Exactly. I always say that, you know, if you hang around clowns long enough, you'll eventually join the circus.
Yeah, we got to make that a title.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. And so, and that was, and I was a starting act in that circus, you know, but I was with that group because they wanted the same thing I wanted. They wanted to get high. They wanted to get drunk. They didn't care how I felt. They didn't care what I did. They didn't care how much money I had. They just cared if I had the substance, which is what I cared about too. So it was kind of like, you know, you'd ask me back in the day, like, these are my best friends, you know, when all our relationship is based off of is drugs and alcohol.
Right.
You know, and so I really don't know you. You
Yeah.
don't know me either.
So when did you go back into rehab for the second time? How much later was that?
So I
after
actually didn't go back to rehab the second time. I actually did this on my own this time. And so I went a couple of years. So when I got out of rehab, I told myself, as long as I stay away from the drugs, because I went to rehab, I wasn't drinking as much as I was using drugs. So when I got out, you know, again, it was my mind playing tricks, you know. I told myself, as long as I stay away from drugs, I can drink responsibly. And
what is that called? That's called bargaining, right? Isn't that like yeah.
Exactly. So bargaining with my mind and bargaining with myself, telling myself that if I don't do one thing, I can do the other. And then I would also lean on the fact, like, well, I just made it 90 days sober. You know, I was in 90 days when that was the only choice that I had. It wasn't anything, you know, that was on my own. Like, I had to stay sober. And so then I started drinking and, you know, I went through spurts where it was like, you know, there was some sobriety. There was, I kind of got my life back together, and I had a full-time job again, and I was living back at home, and I was spending more time with my family.
Are you still checking in with your sponsor? Is your sponsor still checking in with you?
So at that time, I didn't have a sponsor, and I was just kind of freewheeling it. Yeah, I was trying to live my life again without these, as I call them, like, I used to call them stipulations. I felt like I was chained down, like, they wanted me, we've got to meditate and pray every day. And I was like, I'm not about to meditate and pray every single day for the rest of my life. And they wanted me to go to meetings every day, or, at least once a week. Yeah. And I was like, I can't do that for the rest of my life. And just the fact of not being able to get drunk or drink any beer for the rest of my life was crippling.
You said something earlier that really kind of stuck with me. You said, you had this moment and you finally realized, oh my gosh, do other people see this?
Yes.
That, because how I've known you, right? Just the life of the party, loving,
Right.
just always, you're always willing to help out. That right there is a big aha moment.
Yeah,
like, wow, other people see me also.
And that was kind of the thing that, when I was in rehab, they brought to life. We started doing the steps, and I started really diving deep into myself, and I was like, man, like, I really have screwed over a lot of people. Like, I'm a piece of shit.
That was one of my questions. How did you fix some of the damaged relationships you had from this substance abuse?
Step four in the recovery process is you jot down every resentment that you had for your whole life. So you go over, you write it down on a page. And what a lot of people don't realize is that recovery is the drinking and alcoholism is just a side effect. Alcoholism really roots in the heart, and you suffer from a major trauma in life, and alcohol is just a side effect of coping with your trauma.
That's huge.
And so recovery is all about
got chills, like just hearing you say that.
Yeah. So and so many people think that, getting in recovery is just to stop drinking, and it's not about that. That's a side effect. That's what comes with it, is you stop drinking, but it's all about being a better person and doing the next right thing. And so we look at ourselves from a different standpoint. And we really look at how many people we screwed over in step 4, and we write everything down. If so-and-so said something to me that really made me angry, I'm going to write that down. Okay. They said this, it makes me angry because of this, and then you go through, where was I delusional? Where was I dishonest? And if you had hurt that person, then you make a list of amends. And so that's steps 6, 7, and 8. And so then we've got this list of all the people that you've harmed, and you have to go back and make amends to them. And that to me is the most magical part about this process. I've got a friend of mine who was a good friend of mine, and we were super close, and I was lying to him about using drugs the whole time, and then he found out, and he completely cut me off. And at that point, I was kind of angry at him, because I was like, well, why would he do that? Like,
Micah, he didn't want to join your circus.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I was so angry at him, and I was like, well, if he's a real friend, like, he would want to help me. But it was the other way around. Like, he was helping me by basically telling me like, look, man, I've given you chances. I've told you, like, if you continue to do this, it's not going to work out anymore. We can't. But the whole time he had cut me off, he had constantly checked in with my mother to see how I was doing.
Oh.
And he had constantly, how's Micah doing? And he constantly kept contact with my mom, which I didn't know. And so when it came down to it, my list of amends, he was at the top of the list, other than my wife, obviously. And I was scared to do that amends. I really was, because I hadn't talked to him in years. I hadn't seen him in years. And I remember us meeting at Summer Moon, and I remember making the amends to him. And he looked at me and he was like, he's like, I forgive you. He's like, I just haven't been able to forgive myself for what I've done. And that was kind of a huge moment for me. I didn't know what to say. I was kind of speechless. We kind of both were. And now we talk every Sunday. We text all the time. We've started a men's Bible group together.
That's amazing. It's
unbelievable.
And that's a true friendship. Somebody that cares about you enough to check in on you, even though they don't want to get wrapped up in what you're doing, but they still care about you enough.
Of course.
Those friendships are rare.
I'm struck by, emotionally right now, I'm going to start crying.
No.
I'm
It's
struck.
it's a heavy topic.
I'm struck by the facade
Yeah.
that I bought,
Yeah.
not knowing the
Everything.
pain that you had inside.
Right.
And I feel awful about that that's something that you dealt with and you were a kid,
Yeah.
and here I was this person, in your life that you had many people in your life that you counted on to hold you accountable. And you were this class clown
course.
and that's,
You know,
wow,
and
I'm sorry.
and
I'm sorry.
there's-
I had some part in that. I feel, that I was easily manipulated by
Exactly.
you or
That's
whatever.
What I was about
but
to say, and it just goes back to the unhealthy habits that I had. I was able to make people think that I was living a good life and that I was doing the right thing for people. And that was what we call a mask. Like I had multiple masks that I could put on for certain people, and that was a big struggle of mine too, was I knew that, if I'm going to hang out with this person, I got to put this mask on. I got to show them that, hey, I'm this happy-go-lucky. Or if I'm going to hang out with this person, I got to show them that I'm big and bad and tough. And it was just, that was
That
me.
sounds exhausting.
Yeah, and it was.
Exhausting.
And now, now that, September 7th will be 2 years of sobriety for me.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's amazing to be able to wake up nowadays and just kind of live life the way I want to live it.
Does it get easier every day?
Sometimes. So, there's some days that I wake up and I'm not happy, and that's the way it is. But those days when I wake up and I'm not happy, there's either something that I'm not doing with my program or that I haven't done or that I'm not doing well enough or that I need to do. So now it's the recognition that I have rather than just kind of saying, man, I'm not happy today. Screw it. Let's go drink. It's more of, okay, I'm not happy today. Why am I not happy? I'm willing to dive into myself.
But also realizing that everybody has days they're not happy.
Exactly.
Everybody on the planet
Yeah.
does.
Right.
There isn't a
And-
single, I don't care. The Dalai Lama has probably
Yeah.
days he gets up and goes, it kind of sucks today.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
we all have it.
Micah, the emotional growth that I feel like within these last 30, 45 minutes of talking to you has just been leaps and bounds.
Yes.
Like, I mean, granted, I knew you when you were a kid, and now to have the honor of knowing you as an adult and as a father and as a husband, but you are so intelligent and that never
And well spoken.
very well spoken.
Thank you.
And that was, I tell my kids, imagine if you had applied yourself in high school,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That kind of thing.
Right.
But man, you're doing it right now when it matters most.
course.
You have a little girl
Yes.
that looks up to you.
And that's
You
a
are her
huge-
dad.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a huge part of my sobriety. Like I said, my wife is one of the main reasons why I'm sober again. We got married in January of 2022. And I remember one day I woke up and, I was coming off a bender of drugs and alcohol, and she had seen my eyes my pupils were the size of a quarter. And she asked me, she said, "Are you doing drugs again?" And it was almost like I was hearing my mother speak through her from the first time that she had asked me. And my first reaction was to tell her no, because I was still high at the moment. But I looked at her and I was like, yeah, I am. And she just broke down crying and she said, "What do we do?" And,
Oh, wow.
and
That's
yeah.
what do we do?
What do we do? And
That's huge.
And at the time, I didn't hear the we part. At the time, I knew what I needed to do.
You're bad. You've done something wrong again.
Exactly.
You're up again.
You're right.
Like, yeah.
And I knew that I needed to get back into the rooms of AA. And even through the course before that of me drinking and using drugs again, I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew that I was an alcoholic. I knew that I had a problem. And I knew doing what I did, I wouldn't survive it. And there were certain places that I wouldn't go because I knew people that were there that knew that I shouldn't be doing it were going to be there. And I wanted to avoid that situation.
Yeah.
And it goes to like including my sponsor now. Like there were so many times that I wanted to reach out to him, but I felt guilty and I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed, but then this part happened and she said, "What do we do?" And I was like, we need to go back to church. And then I thought, like, you need to get back in the rooms. You need to get back in the rooms. And so I started going back to meetings and
being in fellowship
being
with
in the
people
fellowship
that,
and
yeah,
the
that
people that
understand
understood me, the people that knew what I was
Going
the
through
people
the same thing.
exactly. And that's one of the big parts about recovery is, we walk into these rooms and we see these people that we may not even know them, but we know what they've been through. And you walk into the rooms and you may have just first met this person, but you feel like you've known them forever.
It's a fellowship.
Exactly. And
you walked in, you guys have all walked the same.
Walked
same
the same
paths.
path. And some of them have gone down further than the path that I have. And some have gone down shorter the path than I have. But we all share the common problem, and there's a common solution. It's the program of the 12 steps.
Yeah. Tell me about what the changes you noticed in your body once you got clean.
Oh man, it was huge changes.
Yeah.
Well, not only just the physical change, I remember the heaviest I had gotten was 206 pounds, and I was not muscle. It was all fat. I was a beer drinker and Crown Royal apple. So it was just nothing but sugar and carbs.
Oof,
yeah.
wow.
And so
That sounds disgusting.
yeah, it was not good. And I remember just,
It wasn't about the taste, right?
no, it was not. It was about how many I could drink and still stand up, and that was another thing was I never drank for the taste. I always drank for the feeling. It wasn't that I liked the taste of alcohol. It was I liked the feeling from alcohol, and that's with every addict, alcoholic, but the physical aspect of it was massive. I still look back on some photos of when I was drinking today and my jawline has shrunken, and
You look pretty fit right now.
well, and the milestones that I've reached in the weight room are massive now. And I remember just my first 2 months of just not drinking. I didn't change my diet. I didn't change my workout plan. I didn't change anything, but I cut alcohol out. I had lost 20 pounds.
Oh yeah.
Just out of the blue. And if you ask my wife and my family, they still don't understand how I'm not, 300 pounds because I eat like a kid.
Do you eat like me?
I eat it. I always tell people I'm on the anything I want diet. If it sounds good, I'm gonna eat it.
That's me. That's how I live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but then also just the, not only the physical aspect, the mental aspect of, I think the biggest thing is just being present in situations that I wasn't present in, being present in the situations with my family, sitting there with my family, realizing that, man, this is a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
This is, being there for my sister who, has loved me throughout my whole thing. And for so long, I didn't think she knew what was going on, but she really did. And it was affecting her too. And that's kind of one of my biggest traumas now that I have is seeing what being the older brother, being the role model, showing her, this way of life firsthand.
Big responsibility.
It was, and I look back and I feel ashamed for it, but it was part of the process. It was part of the plan. But as long as I stay sober now and I continue to do my work and, she doesn't have to ever see that again. She doesn't ever have to see that side of me. And so the mental aspect was, and I can think clearly. I can actually think clearly and I can make rational decisions, instead of irrational
and articulate. I want to ask you, and I want to ask you a question. I want to ask you to do something for me. You're going to talk to one of those kids that you hung out with. You're not going to name them. Okay. But right now, if they were listening and you could talk to one of those kids, put that one face, what would you say to them right now that they haven't gone through what you've done?
I would tell them, lean on the people that are still there, even though you've screwed them over. Those are the people that know that you have a problem. They know what you're going through, but they know they can't stop you. And so for me, that was my mother. And I would tell them, I'm here for you too as well, and you're not the only one. That's the biggest thing is. A lot of people don't realize how big recovery is, not only in Dripping Springs, but worldwide. I could go to Florida right now and go to a meeting and find people that are have either more sobriety length than I do or less sobriety length than I do, but it's worldwide.
There's people out there. If your
yeah.
circle is affecting your
Exactly.
life, get out of your circle.
Exactly.
And
And it's
I tell you what, Micah, I'm impressed. I wasn't sure what we were going to get today when you came in, and I think you're very brave for telling your story. And I think you told it very well. And I know there are going to be people that have heard what you had to say, and it's going to affect them. It's going to change their life.
Good.
And I applaud you for having the guts to come in here and tell us this story. It's very uplifting.
Of course.
Very uplifting. And I've enjoyed getting to meet you.
Yeah.
So this is probably the most emotional one we've done.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Michelle. I think she's barely holding
I'm
it
just
together.
my whole body is literally shaking.
Yeah.
Just shaking.
It's been an honor to have you, Micah.
I appreciate it. Thank
And I
y'all for
really
having me.
appreciate you spending your time with us.
Thank you.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.